Welcome, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a world that we don't often get to see, the secret lives of trees.
Ooh, very cool.
We've got some fascinating material to work with today.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from Peter Wohlleben's book, The Hidden Life of Trees,
Oh, I love that book.
and a note from forest scientist Dr. Suzanne Simard.
A legend.
Now, we all know how to identify a tree, right? At least most of us. But today, we're going way beyond that.
Okay.
We're going to uncover how trees communicate, how they learn, even their support systems.
You know, it's funny. We tend to see trees as these kind of like solitary, silent figures just, existing in the landscape. But Wohlleben, based on his years of research, paints a completely different picture.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that trees are not just standing there passively.
Yeah.
They're social beings.
Yeah.
They communicate, they support each other. There's even a system that he compares to social security. How does that even work?
Well, it all comes down to this amazing network of fungi that connects the trees underground. Wohlleben calls it the wood wide web.
Like an underground tree internet.
Exactly. It's a way for trees to share information and resources.
So they're all connected.
They are. Like, imagine a vast network where trees can send messages about insect attacks or droughts, or even share nutrients.
Wow. So give me an example of how this works in practice.
Okay, so Wohlleben describes how when a giraffe starts to eat an acacia tree,
Yeah.
the tree releases a warning signal
Oh, wow.
in the form of ethylene gas.
I was like, hey, watch out, everybody.
Exactly. And the neighboring acacias, they can sense this and they start pumping toxins into their leaves to deter the giraffes.
That's incredible. So it's like a defense mechanism.
It is. They're actively protecting each other. And this communication isn't limited to just scent. Wohlleben also talks about how trees can recognize the saliva of different insects, like through taste.
They can take.
Yeah. And that allows them to launch specific defenses tailored to the type of pest that's attacking them. Like, they might release a chemical signal that attracts the pest's natural predator.
So they're not just defending themselves, they're calling for backup.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fascinating. But what about this social security system you mentioned? How does that tie into this fungal network?
Right. So through this network, stronger trees can actually transfer nutrients to weaker or injured trees,
Oh,
which ensures the overall health of the forest. It's especially crucial during times of stress, like droughts.
so they're taking care of each other.
They are. It's really a community, a society where individuals are connected and dependent on each other.
This is amazing. And it makes me wonder, if trees have this level of sophistication in their communication and social structures, what else are we missing? What other secrets are hiding beneath the surface?
It's really mind-blowing.
Yeah. Well, let's try to uncover some more of these secrets. I'm particularly curious about how young trees grow and learn in this interconnected world.
Yeah. Wohlleben uses this analogy of a tree school to describe the challenges that young trees face.
Tree school.
Tree school. They face intense competition for light, attacks from herbivores,
Oh, yeah, of course.
even the risk of being strangled by climbing vines.
Strangled by vines.
Yeah, like imagine a honeysuckle vine, seemingly harmless, starts coiling around a young tree. As the tree grows, the vine tightens its grip, and eventually it can cut into the bark and kill the tree.
Wow. That's intense. So how do these young trees survive in such a challenging environment?
Well, they get help from an unexpected source, their mothers. Mother trees actually control the growth of their offspring
How did they do that?
by limiting sunlight. They create this tough but ultimately beneficial learning environment.
So like a form of tough love.
Exactly. By limiting sunlight, mother trees force their offspring to grow slowly.
Which seems counterintuitive.
It does. But it actually makes them stronger and more resilient in the long run. This slow growth allows them to develop denser wood, making them less susceptible to disease and damage.
So it's like building a strong foundation.
Exactly. And there's even more. Wohlleben mentions research by Dr. Monica Gagliano that suggests trees might even communicate through sound waves.
Wait, trees talking?
I know, right? It's incredible. But her research shows that plants emit clicking sounds from their roots.
Oh.
And there's evidence suggesting they might respond to certain frequencies.
Oh, wow.
Ah.
So on top of the scent and taste, we might have an entire symphony of sounds in the forest that we just can't hear.
It's a whole other level of communication.
It really challenges our assumptions about what we think we know about trees. But, all this talk about communication and social networks is fascinating. But trees also need to, survive on a basic level.
Of course.
So let's shift gears for a moment and explore another essential aspect of tree life, water and nutrients. Wohlleben describes this fascinating symbiotic relationship between trees and fungi that plays a crucial role in their survival. I always thought roots just absorbed water from the soil.
It's more complex than that.
Yeah,
It really is. Fungi play this crucial role in helping trees access those essential nutrients and water from the soil.
I see.
They have these thread-like hyphae, right?
Yeah.
That it can reach into these tiny spaces that the roots themselves can't get to.
Oh, okay.
So they're like expanding the tree's reach by like 1,000-fold.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like they're acting as an extension of the root system.
Exactly. Reaching into these nooks and crannies of the soil. And in return for this service, the trees give the fungi the sugars that they produce through photosynthesis.
So it's like a trade.
It is a perfect example of symbiosis in nature, give and take.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier something about pollutants and how those can end up in mushrooms. What's the story there?
Right. So these fungi, as helpful as they are, they can also absorb harmful substances from the soil, like heavy metals, for instance.
Oh, no.
And those pollutants can become concentrated in the mushrooms.
Oh, I see.
Wohlleben even mentions how they found radioactive cesium in mushrooms in Germany after Chernobyl. So, stuff that was deposited in the soil long ago can still be present.
That's a bit concerning, considering how much people love to eat mushrooms.
It is. It makes you think about where your food comes from
Yeah.
and how interconnected everything is.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the water transport within trees. So we know that the fungi play a role in the uptake of water, but how do trees move that water, sometimes hundreds of feet up to their highest leaves? It seems to defy gravity.
Right. It's fascinating. There are these theories about osmosis and capillary action,
Right.
but the scientific explanations don't fully account for everything that Wohlleben has observed.
We're really...
He even describes hearing the sound of water rushing up a tree trunk in spring,
Oh, wow.
which current scientific models don't explain.
So even with all of our scientific advancements, trees are still holding on to some secrets.
They are. It's like this element of mystery, right?
Yeah.
Makes them even more intriguing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of challenges, Wohlleben talks a lot about how trees have adapted to survive such harsh conditions. Things like, extreme cold and attacks from pests.
Right.
It makes you appreciate their resilience. I've always loved the beauty of fall foliage,
Me too.
but I never really thought about the reasons behind it.
Yeah.
Like, why do some trees shed their leaves while others stay green all year round?
So deciduous trees, the ones that lose their leaves, they've developed this brilliant strategy for conserving water and energy during winter.
Makes sense.
By shedding their leaves, they reduce water loss, and then they go into this kind of dormant state.
So it's like they're going into energy-saving mode.
Exactly.
But what about evergreen trees like pines and spruces? How do they survive the cold?
Well, conifers, they have needles instead of those broad leaves.
Right.
And those needles are designed to withstand those freezing temperatures and snow. They have a thick, waxy coating in the smaller surface area to minimize water loss.
So they've evolved this different strategy, but with the same goal.
Exactly. Survival.
Yeah. Now, Wohlleben also talks about bark as a form of defense. What role does that play in protecting trees?
So bark is like a tree's armor,
Okay.
shielding it from things like fire, insects, and disease.
All right.
And some trees, they even take this a step further, like birch trees, for example. They have these high levels of betulin in their bark, which is a substance that acts as a powerful deterrent to pests.
Wow. So it's like they've developed their own chemical defense system.
That's right. And it's not just about individual defenses either. Wohlleben emphasizes the resilience of natural forests as a whole.
Right.
Especially when it comes to facing things like storms or floods.
Because they work together.
Exactly. Diversity is key to the strength of a forest. A forest that has a mix of tree species, ages, and sizes is much better equipped to withstand these challenges than, a monoculture.
It's like that saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And during a storm, for example, trees of different heights, right, they'll sway at different rates.
I see.
Which reduces the overall impact of the wind.
So they can kind of buffer each other.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of resilience, remember that 9,550-year-old spruce in Sweden that Wohlleben mentioned?
Oh, yeah. It's incredible.
That's a testament to the incredible lifespan of trees.
It is.
And to their adaptability as well. To have survived that long, that spruce had to have weathered countless storms and droughts.
Yeah.
Even changes in climate.
I know. It makes you wonder what stories that tree could tell if it could speak.
Right. It's just mind-boggling.
It really highlights the incredible longevity and resilience of trees.
Yeah.
And this brings us to, a really crucial point, the role of trees in the broader ecosystem. Wohlleben emphasizes that forests are so much more than just a collection of trees.
Oh, for sure.
They're vital for maintaining water quality,
Yeah.
purifying the air we breathe, supporting this vast web of life. We hear about how important trees are, but it can be hard to grasp that connection in our daily lives. How does Wohlleben bring that connection to life for the reader?
Well, he talks about how spending time in an old-growth forest can actually make people feel more relaxed, more at ease. He even suggests that maybe we're subconsciously picking up on these contented messages that are being exchanged between the trees.
It's like the forest is radiating this sense of peace
Yeah, exactly.
and well-being that we can tap into.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, forests around the world are facing some serious threats, right?
they are.
From deforestation to the impacts of climate change. Does Wohlleben address these challenges in his book?
Absolutely. He tackles the impact of human activities head on,
Okay.
highlighting the urgency of protecting these vital ecosystems. He talks about the introduction of non-native species, like the Douglas fir, for instance,
Okay.
that can outcompete native trees and disrupt that delicate balance of the forest.
It's like introducing a species that takes over,
Exactly.
disrupts the existing harmony.
Yeah. And he also addresses this complex issue of climate change and how it's already impacting forests. He describes how rising temperatures are causing some species to migrate north, while others are struggling to adapt to these hotter, drier conditions.
So it's like climate change is shaking up the whole forest ecosystem
Yeah.
with these potentially unpredictable consequences.
It's a reality that we have to face, but even amidst these challenges, there's a sense of hope in Wohleben's book.
Okay, good.
He emphasizes that incredible resilience of nature, that ability of forests to regenerate, and the power of human action to make a difference.
I like that. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the ways that trees are actually adapting to these changing conditions?
Well, Wohlleben explains that trees have this amazing capacity for adaptation, both in their behavior and their genetics. Like he gives the example of spruce trees becoming more efficient with water use during droughts.
Okay.
They can actually limit their water uptake, and they can even thicken the waxy layer on their needles to reduce water loss.
So it's like they're learning to conserve resources.
They're responding to those changing conditions.
But what about genetic adaptations? How does that work?
Right. So trees are constantly evolving to meet new challenges. Wohlleben describes how tree seeds can actually react to environmental conditions as they're ripening.
Oh, wow.
So, for instance, if it's a particularly hot, dry year, certain genes will be activated in those seeds,
I see.
giving the seedlings a better chance of surviving in those specific conditions.
So it's almost like nature is fine-tuning
It is.
the next generation of trees,
Selecting for those traits that'll help them thrive.
right, in this changing world.
Exactly. And this genetic variability is crucial for that long-term survival of forests, giving them that flexibility to adapt to new climates, pests, challenges that we might not even be able to predict yet.
It's amazing. We've spent all this time talking about trees, and I feel like
Yeah.
we've only just scratched the surface.
It really is incredible. There's so much complexity there.
What's really striking me is how intricate these systems are. It almost feels like intelligence, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really makes you rethink the way we view forests, They're not just these passive landscapes.
No.
These trees are actively shaping their environment, influencing everything from the soil to the air.
And Wohlleben really emphasizes the need for us to view trees as fellow living beings, deserving of our respect and protection.
Absolutely. And he particularly highlights the importance of those ancient, undisturbed forests, the old growth forests in maintaining biodiversity, a healthy ecosystem.
They really are special places.
They are. And, he kind of challenges that traditional forestry model, which prioritizes short-term economic gain over long-term sustainability.
Yeah.
He argues for a shift in our thinking to see forests more as partners than just resources to be exploited.
Like, these forests have thrived for millennia without human interference.
Yeah.
Maybe we should learn from them rather than try to control them.
Exactly. And he even brings up this thought-provoking comparison between, the growing understanding of animal rights and the movement to recognize the rights of nature, including trees.
So you're saying there's a movement to give trees legal standing?
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
But it's gaining traction globally. Could we see a future where trees have those same legal protections similar to animals?
where harming a forest is seen as a crime against nature.
It's fascinating to think about. But, even without formal legal rights, we can still make choices that reflect that deeper respect for trees and the forests that they create.
Like supporting sustainable forestry practices, planting native trees, advocating for protection of old-growth forests.
Exactly. And on a more personal level, cultivating that sense of wonder, that curiosity about the trees in our own lives.
It's like Wohlleben is encouraging us to just slow down,
Yeah.
observe, really listen to the forest, connect with these ancient beings on a deeper level. He even suggests that we might actually be able to sense those contented messages that are being exchanged between trees in a healthy forest.
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it?
It
It
is.
makes you want to go out and experience it for yourself.
It does. It really does. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for guiding us through this hidden world. I feel like I'm seeing trees in a completely new light.
My pleasure. And
Mhm.
the next time you're in a forest, just take a moment, listen to the trees. You might be surprised by what you hear.